Have you ever felt stuck? You know, like you're not where you used to be anymore, but you're definitely not where you want to go yet. If that sounds familiar, then the Easter story in Luke chapter 24 is for you. It's not just some ancient tale, it's actually a roadmap for anyone navigating those tough moments of transition in their own journey of faith. So let's dive right into this story and see what it has to say to us right here, right now. The story kicks off with this really beautiful Greek phrase, orthros patheos. It means deep dawn. It's meant to capture that fragile, in-between moment when it's not quite dark anymore, but it's not really light yet either. It's a time filled with uncertainty, but also with this glimmer of fragile hope. And honestly, this just perfectly describes where so many of us find ourselves, doesn't it? We're living in our own deep dawn, caught somewhere between a pain we're trying to leave behind and a hope that we can't fully see yet. This explainer is for anyone who feels like they're standing in that exact spot today. So here's how we're going to walk through this. First, we'll look at that deep dawn moment. Then we'll dive into 3 very different human responses to the empty tomb. After that, we'll unpack 2 huge truths that flow from the resurrection. And we'll wrap up with a really important question about your next step. Okay, first up, let's talk about the timing of this whole event, because when it happened reveals something really profound about the nature of God. Here's the most crucial point. By the time anyone showed up at the tomb, the resurrection was already a done deal. It had already happened. Before a single person saw it, before anyone believed it, God had already acted. He didn't wait for us to be ready. He didn't wait for our faith to be perfect. He just acted. And that is such a powerful thing to hang on to when you feel uncertain or unprepared. Okay, now let's get to the real heart of our story. We've got one event that changed history forever, the empty tomb, and 3 totally different human reactions. This is where we get to find ourselves in the story. So as we go through these, I want you to ask yourself, honestly, which one of these sounds the most like me right now? Are you like the women, the apostles, or Peter? First up, we have the women. Look, their love for Jesus was 100% sincere. Their devotion was legit. They were up before dawn carrying expensive spices. But here's the kicker. Their expectation was completely and totally wrong. They were walking towards a tomb to anoint a dead body, not to greet a living Lord. So when they see the empty tomb, the Bible says they were perplexed. The Greek word used here is aporeo, and it literally means to be without a path forward. You know that feeling when the rug gets pulled out from under you and your old ways of explaining the world just don't work anymore? Sometimes God has to empty out our old categories before he can fill us with a new truth. Now, the turning point for them is just fascinating. The angels don't give them some brand new revelation. They just say one simple word, remember. For them, faith didn't start with learning something new. It started when the words of God, which they had already heard, suddenly came alive in their hearts. For anyone feeling lost right now, that's often the most practical first step. Just remember what God has already promised you. All right, let's look at our second group, the apostles. When the women come running back with the incredible news, their reaction is, well, it's pretty underwhelming. They hit back with rational disbelief. The word Luke uses to describe their reaction is leros. This doesn't just mean they thought it was untrue. It means they thought it was nonsense, like the delirious ramblings of someone with a high fever. Think about it. These are the guys who walked with Jesus for 3 years, and they dismissed the greatest news in all of history as complete madness. But it's so important to understand why they were disbelieving. This wasn't some defiant rebellion against God. It was simply a failure of imagination, a limitation based on all their human experience. For their entire lives, and for all of human history, dead people stay dead. End of story. Their worldview just didn't have a category for resurrection. Maybe, just maybe, your biggest barrier to faith isn't rebellion. It's just a small expectation of what God can actually do. Think of it like the 4-minute mile. For decades, experts said it was physically impossible, a hard limit. But then in 1954, Roger Bannister did it. And within just 2 years, hundreds of other runners did it too. What changed? Not human physiology. What changed was human belief about what was possible. The resurrection is like that. It shatters the limits of what we thought was permanent. And finally, that brings us to our third response, a kind of middle ground that we see in Peter. He represents uncertain movement. The Bible says Peter got up and ran. Now, the Greek word for he got up is anastast, and this is so cool. It shares the exact same root as the word for resurrection. He didn't have perfect faith. He didn't have it all figured out, but he moved toward the truth. And this is so important. Faith often doesn't start with perfect certainty. It starts with simple, active movement.
So let's just quickly recap our three responses. We have the women who moved from fear to becoming faithful witnesses because they remembered and obeyed. Then we have the apostles who were stuck in disbelief because of their limited expectations. And then there's Peter, open but uncertain, who moves from wonder into an active search. Most of us, if we're honest, are probably a mix of all three at different times.
So, what does all of this mean for our lives today? Let's unpack the first of two huge truths this event gives us. And this one has to do with our failures. You know, in the Japanese art of Kintsugi, when a piece of pottery breaks, they don't throw it away. Instead, they fill the cracks with real gold. The repaired piece is then considered even more beautiful and valuable, not in spite of its brokenness, but because of it. Well, that's resurrection logic. God doesn't just fix our failures. He fills the broken places in our lives with His glory, making our story more beautiful. Your worst Friday is never, ever the final chapter. And the second truth is a real game changer. The resurrection isn't just a promise for after we die. It's a power that is available to us right here, right now. This means that the exact same power that brought Jesus out of the tomb is actively at work in believers today. That's the power to heal a relationship you thought was dead, the power to break a habit you thought was permanent, the power to find hope in a situation that feels absolutely desperate. The new creation isn't just coming someday. The verse says it's already here. And look, this isn't just some nice, fluffy idea. It's grounded in historical reality. The Apostle Paul, writing just a couple of decades after it happened, said that the risen Christ appeared to more than 500 people at one time. And then he added that most of them were still alive. He was basically saying, hey, if you don't believe me, go ask them yourself. And all of this brings us to one final, crucial question. The angels asked the women, why do you look for the living among the dead? That same question echoes down to us today. Where are you looking for life? In your job? In a relationship? In trying to control everything? Because in the end, the resurrection isn't just a doctrine you're supposed to believe. It's a reality that you get to live. And you don't need to have perfect faith. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to take the next step. Maybe for you, like the women, that next step is simply remembering what God has already promised. Or maybe, like Peter, it's just getting up and moving toward the source of life, even with all your uncertainty. So the question is, what's your next step?